My beloved child, pause right here, because there is a reason these words may feel strangely connected to what you have been experiencing lately. Maybe you noticed something unusual today. Maybe a thought kept returning. Maybe you opened this video at the exact moment you were questioning something you could not explain. And now you are wondering whether it is simply random. Listen carefully, because the message is not asking you to believe that every event is supernatural. It is asking you to notice what this moment is revealing about your own life. Archangel Michael's message today is about awareness, timing, discernment, and the details we often overlook when our minds are overwhelmed. Don't skip, because the first revelation is simple but powerful. Sometimes what feels like a coincidence becomes meaningful because it causes you to stop and recognize something you were already ready to see. Something huge is waiting for you inside this message, but you must listen carefully enough to recognize the connection. Think about what has been happening around you recently. Perhaps you have been seeing the same theme repeatedly, in conversations, thoughts, dreams, decisions, or unexpected reminders. Perhaps one particular question has followed you from one day into another. You may have tried to ignore it, but somehow it keeps returning. That does not automatically mean the universe is sending you a secret code. Sometimes repetition simply reveals what your own attention has been trying to process. And that can be just as powerful. Archangel Michael represents courage, strength, and protection in Christian tradition, and this message is inviting you to bring those qualities into your own discernment. Stay till the end, because later we are going to uncover why one particular pattern may matter more than you realize. And why recognizing it could change the way you approach a decision that has been sitting quietly in the background of your life. Don't skip, because what looks like an ordinary detail at first may become the missing piece that helps you understand what your heart has been trying to communicate. Now listen to this carefully. You do not have to force meaning onto everything that happens. You do not need to chase signs or turn every coincidence into a prediction. Instead, pause and ask better questions. Why did this moment catch your attention? What thought was already on your mind before it happened? What decision have you been avoiding? What truth have you been sensing but refusing to examine? Something huge may be waiting for you, but perhaps the first step is not discovering something mysterious outside yourself, it is finally seeing something clearly within yourself. Stay till the end. Don't skip now, because the next part will go deeper into the connection between repeated moments, hidden emotions, and the choices you may be approaching. You may have clicked this video thinking you were simply watching another message, but by the time you hear what comes next, you may understand why this particular moment became meaningful to you. Something has been repeating around you, and perhaps you have been noticing it without understanding why it keeps catching your attention. A certain name, thought, conversation, place, opportunity, or question may keep appearing in different forms. You might call it coincidence, but the deeper question is not whether every repetition carries a supernatural meaning. The deeper question is why this particular pattern matters to you. What does it awaken inside you? What does it make you reconsider? What decision does it keep bringing back into your awareness? Archangel Michael's message today is asking you to slow down and observe rather than immediately create an explanation. Don't skip, because something huge may be hiding inside that distinction. Sometimes the most powerful realization is not discovering a secret message outside yourself, but recognizing the truth you have been avoiding within yourself. Stay till the end, because later we are going to uncover why one repeated detail may be connected to a choice you have been postponing. Now think about the timing. Perhaps something happened just after you were thinking about it. Perhaps you heard words that answered a question you had been carrying privately. Perhaps you encountered an opportunity shortly after deciding that you needed a change. These moments can feel incredibly personal, but instead of rushing to label them as fate, use them as invitations to reflect. Ask yourself what the moment is encouraging you to examine. Is there something you need to prepare for? Something you need to release? Something you need to learn? Something you need to finally begin? If this message is speaking to a situation in your life, share it with someone who might need a reminder to slow down and pay attention to what truly matters. And if you want to keep receiving messages that encourage reflection, stay connected, but do not let the excitement of a coincidence replace careful thinking. Archangel Michael's message is about courage and discernment, and sometimes discernment means refusing to jump to conclusions even when something feels incredibly meaningful. Here is where the story becomes even more interesting. The coincidence may not be the revelation at all. The revelation may be what you do after you notice it. One person sees a repeated pattern and becomes anxious. Another sees it and becomes curious. Another sees it and uses the moment to reflect on a decision they have been avoiding. Which response creates the most wisdom? Stay till the end, because this is where the message begins moving towards something much deeper. Something huge may be waiting for you, but you may not recognize it if you are focused only on finding an extraordinary explanation. Look at the practical meaning. Look at the opportunity for growth. Look at the choice in front of you. Don't skip, because the next part will reveal why the timing of certain moments can feel so powerful, and how one seemingly ordinary coincidence may be inviting you to finally pay attention to something your heart has been trying to tell you for much longer than you realize. There is a moment when a coincidence stops feeling ordinary, not because you have to prove that it was supernatural, but because it forces you to notice something you had been overlooking. Maybe you were already thinking about a decision when a conversation suddenly brought that exact subject back into your attention. Maybe you were questioning your direction when an unexpected opportunity appeared. Maybe you were trying to move on from an old chapter when something reminded you of a lesson you never fully understood. Archangel Michael's message today is asking you to look beneath the surface. Don't skip, because the real revelation may not be the event itself. It may be the truth it causes you to confront. Something huge may be waiting for you, but before you can recognize what comes next, you need to understand why this particular moment affected you so strongly. Think about the emotion that appeared immediately after the coincidence. Did you feel hopeful? Curious? Calm? Uncertain? Motivated? That reaction can tell you something important about what the moment touched inside you. Sometimes an external event becomes meaningful because it connects with an internal question that has been waiting for an answer. And perhaps you have one of those questions right now. Maybe you keep wondering whether you should begin again. Maybe you are questioning whether a certain direction still fits your life. Maybe you are wondering whether it is time to stop waiting for someone else to change. Stay till the end, because the next revelation is about how to distinguish a meaningful reflection from a conclusion you are simply hoping will be true. Archangel Michael's message is not asking you to surrender your judgment. It is asking you to strengthen it. Notice the moment, but examine the facts. Honor the feeling, but do not let the feeling make every decision. And now comes the part you may not expect. Perhaps the coincidence appeared because you were finally ready to ask a question you had avoided for too long. You may have been waiting for permission to admit what you already knew. You may have been searching for certainty when what you really needed was courage. Something huge may be waiting for you, but it could begin with one honest realization: you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because we are moving closer to the central revelation behind this entire message. The next time something unexpectedly connects with a thought you have been carrying, do not immediately chase it as a sign. Pause. Ask what it is showing you about your priorities. Ask what action would be wise even if the coincidence had never happened. And then listen carefully, because the most powerful connection may not be between two external events at all. It may be between the person you have been and the person you are finally becoming. Something about this moment may be asking you to look at your life from a completely different angle. Perhaps you have been waiting for a clear signal about what to do next, and then suddenly an unexpected conversation, opportunity, memory, or repeated theme appears at exactly the right time. It can feel almost impossible to ignore. But here is the deeper message. You do not need to prove that the moment was supernatural for it to be meaningful. Sometimes timing becomes powerful because it exposes what your heart has already been carrying. Archangel Michael's message today is calling you toward courage, clarity, and discernment. Don't skip, because something huge may be waiting behind the question this moment creates. Instead of asking only, "Was this a coincidence?" ask, "Why did this matter so much to me?" That question can reveal more than any dramatic explanation. It can uncover a dream you buried, a decision you delayed, a relationship you have been reconsidering, or a direction you have secretly wanted to explore. Now think about the pattern that has been appearing. Maybe it has shown up through different people, different conversations, or completely different situations, yet the underlying message seems strangely similar. Do not rush to assume that every repeated detail has a hidden meaning. Look for the practical connection. What keeps returning to your attention? What subject makes you stop scrolling? What idea keeps resurfacing even when you try to focus on something else? If this message has helped you recognize a pattern in your own life, share it with someone who may be going through a similar season, and stay connected for more messages that encourage reflection and faith. But remember, the goal is not to become obsessed with finding signs. The goal is to become more aware of your choices. Stay till the end, because the next part will reveal why the most important coincidence may be the one that changes how you see yourself, not the one that predicts what will happen next. And now listen closely, because this is where the message becomes surprisingly personal. You may have been waiting for something outside yourself to confirm that you are ready. But perhaps you already have enough evidence. You have learned from the past. You have survived uncertainty. You have discovered what matters and what no longer fits. You have become more aware of your own values. Something huge may be waiting for you, but it may begin with the moment you stop waiting for perfect certainty and start making one thoughtful decision. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because the next part will take this even deeper. The coincidence that brought you here may not be a prediction of what happens tomorrow. It may simply be the interruption you needed today, a moment that made you stop, reflect, and finally notice the direction your own life has been pointing toward. And once you see that direction clearly, the next step may feel far less mysterious. There is something you may have overlooked because you were searching for a dramatic answer, but the real revelation could be much quieter. Perhaps the coincidence that caught your attention was not pointing toward a specific event at all. Perhaps it was exposing a pattern in your own thinking. You keep returning to the same dream. You keep thinking about the same change. You keep imagining what life could look like if you finally made a different choice. And every time you try to push that thought away, something reminds you of it again. Archangel Michael's message today is asking you to pay attention. Not blindly, but thoughtfully. Don't skip, because something huge may be waiting inside this realization. Repetition can sometimes reveal what your attention has been trying to process. It does not automatically predict the future, but it can show you where your heart, mind, and priorities are repeatedly asking you to look. Now imagine that you removed the coincidence completely. Imagine that the unexpected conversation never happened, that the familiar name never appeared, that the opportunity never arrived at that particular moment. What would you still be thinking about? What question would still remain? What decision would still be sitting quietly inside your mind? Stay till the end, because this question may reveal more than the coincidence itself. Sometimes we become so fascinated by the timing that we forget to examine the underlying issue. Maybe you are not actually waiting for a sign. Maybe you are waiting for courage. Maybe you already know which direction deserves exploration, but you are afraid of what choosing it might require. Perhaps you have been asking for confirmation when what you really need is preparation. If this message has made you think about someone or something important in your life, share it with someone who may need this reminder too. And remember, you do not have to make an impulsive decision just because a moment feels meaningful. Meaning should lead to reflection, not recklessness. Here is the revelation that may change the entire way you interpret what happened. Perhaps the coincidence did not arrive to tell you what will happen, it arrived to show you what you are ready to consider. That is a completely different kind of message. Something huge may be waiting for you, but you will recognize it through wisdom, patience, and preparation rather than desperation. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because the next part will reveal why your response after the coincidence may matter more than the coincidence itself. If it inspired you, examine why. If it challenged you, examine why. If it gave you hope, ask what practical step that hope is encouraging you to take. Archangel Michael's message is not asking you to chase mysterious explanations. It is asking you to become awake to the opportunities for growth already appearing in your life. And perhaps the most surprising part is this: the moment you thought was simply a coincidence may have been meaningful because it helped you finally see something that had been waiting inside you all along. There is a deeper connection you may not have noticed yet, because sometimes the most meaningful moments arrive when your attention is already focused on something you have been quietly carrying. Perhaps you were thinking about a new beginning, and then something unexpectedly reminded you of it. Perhaps you were questioning whether to continue, and suddenly a conversation brought the same question back into your mind. Perhaps you were wondering whether you were ready, and an opportunity appeared that made you stop and reconsider everything. Archangel Michael's message today is asking you not to rush into an explanation. Instead, notice what the moment revealed about you. Don't skip, because something huge may be waiting in the answer. The coincidence may not be telling you exactly what will happen next, it may be showing you what deserves your attention right now. And sometimes that distinction changes everything, because when you stop trying to predict the future, you become much better at recognizing the choices available in the present. Think about what you were feeling before that unexpected moment occurred. Were you already tired of waiting? Were you secretly hoping for change? Were you wondering whether you should let go of an old expectation? Perhaps the coincidence simply brought an internal question to the surface. Stay till the end, because this is where the message becomes even more personal. Your mind often notices what matters to you before you consciously admit that it matters. That is why one sentence can suddenly stay with you all day, why one opportunity can feel impossible to ignore, or why one unexpected encounter can make you rethink a decision you thought was already settled. This does not mean you should treat every moment as a supernatural instruction. It means you should become curious about your own reaction. What did the moment awaken? What did it remind you of? What possibility did it make you consider? Those answers may be more valuable than trying to prove exactly why the coincidence happened. And now comes the part you may not have expected. Maybe you have been asking for a sign because you are afraid to trust yourself without one. Maybe you want something outside yourself to remove the responsibility of choosing. But Archangel Michael's message is pointing you toward something stronger. Courage is not waiting forever for absolute certainty. Courage is gathering wisdom, examining reality, seeking guidance when needed, and then taking a thoughtful step even when you cannot see the entire road. Something huge may be waiting for you, but it may require participation from you. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because the next part will reveal why the timing of this message may feel so personal. And why the most important thing you can do now is stop chasing the coincidence and start listening to the question it awakened inside you. Perhaps the moment was not the destination. Perhaps it was simply the doorway through which you finally noticed where your attention needed to go. Something has changed in the way you are seeing this now, because you may finally understand that the coincidence was never the whole message. It was the interruption. It made you pause when you were moving too quickly. It made you remember something you had pushed aside. It brought a forgotten dream, unresolved question, or important possibility back into your awareness. Archangel Michael's message today is asking you to pay attention to what happened inside you after that moment. Don't skip, because something huge may be waiting in the meaning you personally discovered. Maybe you suddenly realize that you have been waiting for permission to begin. Maybe you recognize that you have been holding on to an outdated expectation. Or perhaps you finally admitted that a certain direction deserves another honest look. The coincidence may have caught your attention, but your response is where the real story begins. Now imagine that you are standing at the edge of a new chapter with no perfect map in your hands. You can see possibilities, but you cannot see every consequence. This is where many people become stuck. They keep searching for one final confirmation, one undeniable sign, one moment that removes every doubt. But life rarely gives you that kind of certainty. Stay till the end, because this may be the revelation you have been waiting for. You do not need absolute certainty to begin exploring a possibility. You need wisdom. You need patience. You need enough courage to take one responsible step and then evaluate what you learn. If something has been repeatedly appearing in your life, investigate it thoughtfully. If a dream keeps returning, explore what practical action could bring it closer. If an old question keeps resurfacing, give yourself permission to examine it honestly. Do not force a conclusion. Let clarity develop through observation and action. And here is where the title of this message becomes even more powerful. Perhaps this was not a coincidence because it interrupted the pattern you had been living in. Something huge may be waiting for you, but it may not be a sudden miracle or an instant answer. It could be a new level of awareness. It could be the moment you realize that you have been capable of more than you believed. It could be the decision to stop waiting for perfect timing and begin preparing for the possibility you secretly want. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because the next part will reveal what happens when you stop asking, "What does this sign guarantee?" and start asking, "What is this moment inviting me to become?" Archangel Michael's message is guiding you toward courage, discernment, and intentional action. The coincidence may have opened your eyes. But what you choose to do with what you have seen is entirely up to you. There is another layer to this moment that you may not have considered, because sometimes the most important connection is not between two events, it is between who you were yesterday and who you are becoming now. Maybe something that once mattered deeply no longer has the same power over you. Maybe an old dream has returned, but you are approaching it with more maturity this time. Maybe a familiar situation has appeared again, but instead of reacting the way you always did, you are finally asking better questions. Archangel Michael's message today is asking you to notice that difference. Don't skip, because something huge may be waiting inside this realization. The coincidence may have appeared meaningful because you are no longer the same person who would have ignored it before. You have grown enough to notice what you once overlooked. You have learned enough to question what you once accepted. And you may now be ready to make a decision from wisdom instead of habit. Think carefully about what this moment has brought back into your awareness. Is there something you once wanted but abandoned because the timing was wrong? Is there a conversation you keep thinking about? Is there a direction you have secretly wanted to explore but never allowed yourself to take seriously? Stay till the end, because the answer may not be about chasing that exact thing. It may be about understanding why it still matters. Perhaps it represents freedom. Perhaps it represents creativity, purpose, connection, growth, or a version of yourself you have not allowed to emerge. That is why you must look beyond the surface. Do not assume the coincidence is telling you exactly what to do. Ask what it is revealing about your priorities. Ask what it is awakening in you. Ask what practical step would make sense even if you never saw that coincidence again. That question will protect you from fantasy while still allowing you to recognize genuine opportunities. And now, if you want a new chapter, what needs to change in your habits? If you want a new opportunity, what skill needs strengthening? If you want healthier relationships, what boundaries and communication patterns need to improve? Don't skip. Stay till the end, because the next part will bring you closer to the most surprising realization of all. Archangel Michael's message is not simply about noticing unusual moments. It is about becoming ready for the opportunities those moments may inspire you to explore. Perhaps this coincidence did not come to hand you an answer. Perhaps it came to wake up your attention, strengthen your courage, and remind you that the next chapter will require your participation. And when you are prepared, you may recognize an opportunity that you would have completely missed before. The moment is becoming clearer now, because perhaps the real reason this coincidence affected you is that it touched something you were already ready to confront. You may have been telling yourself that you were waiting for the right time, but deep down you knew there was a question you needed to answer. Maybe you have been delaying a fresh beginning. Maybe you have been holding on to a possibility that no longer fits. Maybe you have been wondering whether you are capable of building something different. Then suddenly, one unexpected moment appears, and it feels as though someone switched on a light inside a room you had forgotten existed. Archangel Michael's message today is asking you to examine that feeling with wisdom. Don't skip, because something huge may be waiting in the realization that follows. Perhaps the coincidence did not create the desire, it simply revealed that the desire was already there. That means you do not need to chase the coincidence. You need to understand what it uncovered. There is a powerful question you should carry with you now: what would I still choose if I stopped waiting for someone else to validate it? Think about that carefully. Maybe there is a goal you have delayed because you were afraid people would not understand. Maybe there is a change you have considered but kept postponing because you wanted everyone around you to approve. Maybe there is a direction that quietly makes sense to you, but you have been waiting for absolute certainty before giving yourself permission to explore it. Stay till the end, because this is where the message becomes deeper. Archangel Michael's message is about courage, but courage does not mean ignoring reality. It means being willing to examine reality honestly and then act according to your values. Look at the facts. Consider the consequences. Seek wise counsel when necessary. Prepare properly. And then, if the direction still feels right, take the next responsible step. You do not need everyone to understand your growth before you begin growing. And here comes the surprising revelation: the biggest coincidence may be the timing of your own readiness. Something huge may be waiting for you, but perhaps you are finally becoming the person capable of recognizing it. A year ago, you might have overlooked the same opportunity. A few months ago, you might have responded from emotion. But now you may be calmer, wiser, and more aware of what truly matters. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because the final part will bring everything together and reveal why this moment may remain in your memory long after this video ends. The message is not asking you to become obsessed with signs. It is asking you to become awake to your own growth. If something unexpected catches your attention, pause. If it connects with a long-standing question, reflect. If it reveals an opportunity, examine it. And if it points toward a possibility that aligns with your values, prepare for it. Perhaps this was not a coincidence because it gave you an answer. Perhaps it mattered because it made you ready to ask the right question. My beloved child, now the pieces begin to come together, because perhaps you have finally understood why this moment felt different. You were not simply looking for another message. You were looking for clarity about something that had already been occupying your thoughts. And then, at a moment you did not expect, something appeared that made you pause. Maybe it was a conversation, a memory, an opportunity, a familiar phrase, or simply a thought that returned with unusual strength. Whatever form it took, the important part is what happened inside you afterward. You started paying attention. You started questioning. You started remembering. You started considering possibilities you had pushed aside. Archangel Michael's message today is asking you to recognize that shift. Don't skip, because something huge may be waiting in the realization that this moment does not have to predict your future to change it. Sometimes one meaningful interruption can cause you to make a different choice, and one different choice can eventually lead you somewhere you never expected to go. Now think about the path ahead without demanding that everything become clear immediately. You may still have questions. You may still feel uncertain about what comes next. That is completely human. What matters is that you no longer have to remain passive while waiting for perfect confirmation. You can prepare. You can learn. You can ask better questions. You can examine opportunities carefully. You can release expectations that no longer fit. Stay till the end, because this is the revelation you need to remember. A meaningful coincidence does not have to tell you what will happen. It can simply remind you to become more intentional about what you choose. If a moment inspires you, turn inspiration into preparation. If it reveals a desire, examine whether that desire aligns with your values. If it brings a person or possibility back into your thoughts, do not immediately assume destiny. Look at reality, consistency, and mutual respect. Archangel Michael's message is not asking you to abandon discernment. It is asking you to strengthen it. The more clearly you see, the less you need to force an explanation. And now, as this message reaches its deepest point, remember what you were feeling before you pressed play. Perhaps you were searching for reassurance. Perhaps you were carrying a question. Perhaps you were quietly wondering whether your life could move in a completely different direction. Something huge may be waiting for you, but the first step may be much simpler than you imagined. Become willing to see what is already in front of you. Don't skip the lesson just because the message is ending. Stay with this thought for a moment. Maybe this was not a coincidence because it handed you a guaranteed future. Maybe it was meaningful because it interrupted your routine long enough for you to recognize something important about yourself. You are growing. Your priorities are changing. Your awareness is becoming sharper. And the next chapter may require a version of you who is more prepared, more courageous, and more discerning than the version who began this journey. Archangel Michael's message for you today is simple. Notice what deserves your attention, examine what deserves your trust, prepare for what deserves your effort, and never confuse uncertainty with the absence of direction. Sometimes the moment that feels random becomes unforgettable because it arrives exactly when you are finally ready to see what it was pointing you toward, not a guaranteed outcome, but a possibility worth exploring. My beloved child, there is one final truth you must carry with you, because the meaning of this entire message becomes clearer when you stop asking whether the moment was a coincidence and start asking what it changed inside you. Perhaps before this video, you were confused about a decision, distracted by the past, or quietly waiting for something to make sense. Then you encountered these words, and suddenly a thought you had been pushing away returned to the surface. Maybe you remembered a dream. Maybe you reconsidered a direction. Maybe you realized that you have been waiting for certainty when you actually needed courage. Don't skip, because something huge may be waiting inside that realization. The most meaningful part of this moment may not be something outside you at all. It may be the awareness that you are ready to look at your life differently. Archangel Michael's message is calling you toward strength, wisdom, and discernment, not toward fear or blind belief. You do not need to turn every coincidence into a prediction. You simply need to notice what deserves your attention and then respond with intention. Think about the next time something unexpectedly connects with a thought you have been carrying. Instead of immediately asking, "What does this guarantee?" ask, "What is this helping me notice?" That single question can change everything. Maybe it reminds you of something you need to prepare for. Maybe it reveals a priority you have neglected. Maybe it gives you the courage to investigate an opportunity you previously dismissed. Maybe it simply reminds you that your life is still capable of surprising you. Stay till the end, because the final revelation is this: you are not required to know whether a moment was destined in order for it to become meaningful. You can choose to let meaningful moments make you wiser without letting them control your decisions. Examine the facts. Watch for consistency. Give yourself time. Seek wise counsel when needed. And then make choices that reflect the person you are becoming. That is real discernment. That is where courage becomes action. And now, before you move on from this message, remember the moment that brought you here. You could have been somewhere else. You could have been thinking about something completely different. Yet you stopped long enough to hear these words. Maybe that is the coincidence that matters most, not because it guarantees what happens next, but because it gave you a moment to pause and reconsider your direction. Something huge may be waiting for you, but do not chase it with desperation. Prepare for it with wisdom. Don't skip the lesson. Stay till the end and carry this final thought with you. Sometimes the most powerful message is not, "This will happen," but, "Pay attention to what you are becoming." Your future is shaped through countless choices, and you still have choices ahead of you. If an opportunity appears, examine it. If a door opens, if a path no longer reflects your values, allow yourself to reconsider it. Archangel Michael's message today is ultimately an invitation to become more awake, more courageous, and more intentional. Perhaps this was not a coincidence because it gave you a guaranteed answer. Perhaps it mattered because you were finally ready to ask a better question, and sometimes one better question is enough to begin an entirely new chapter.